Of the Public Safety Committee. I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight's Public Safety Committee hearing on the 2017 proposed budget for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Division of Fire, and the Division of Support Services. I would like to thank my colleagues, Councilmember Stenziano and Councilmember Page, who are also here for attending this evening's hearing. Copies of tonight's agenda are available at the entrance of council chambers. Public safety continues to be the main priority for Mayor Ginther, equating to approximately $578 million, nearly 67% of the total general fund operating budget. Some of the highlights to be discussed in this evening's hearing will be the continued implementation of the Division of Police body-worn camera program and the addition of a second recruiting class for the Division of Fire. Tonight, Director Nepes Jr. will give an overview of the budget process for the Department of Public Safety. Police Chief Kim Jacobs, Fire Chief Kevin O'Connor, and Support Services Administrator Ramona Patz will highlight the budget proposals for their respective divisions and outline the goals and initiatives for the coming year. At this time, Director Pettis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Safety Chair Mitchell J. Brown and members of council, and good evening. We are pleased to be here tonight to discuss the Public Safety 2017 budget. Before we continue with budget specifics, Public Safety would like to thank Mayor Andrew Ginther, Auditor Dorian, members of council, and especially the voters of Columbus for their support. We appreciate the budget allocated to public safety as it continues to represent Mayor Ginther's top funding priority. With me this evening to help answer questions are Police Chief Kim Jacobs, Fire Chief Kevin O'Connor, Support Services Administrator Ramona Patz, and Fiscal Manager Echo Dennis. The term public safety is rather forthright and simplistic, yet what our employees do is provide quality, dependable safety services to the citizens of Columbus by maintaining safe neighborhoods and working cooperatively with citizens to minimize injury, death, and property destruction. This is accomplished by managing the resources of the police, fire, and the support services divisions. I'll now ask my division leaders to share with you some brief statistics on what public safety did with its budget in 2015, the most recent year for which we have annual figures, and also share some recent highlights. We will begin with Police Chief Jacobs. Chief Jacobs.
Thank you, Director. Council members, with respect to the Division of Police, I'm proud to say that the City of Columbus was highlighted as being one of 5 major cities in the nation that did not have an increase in Type 1 or violent crime. At the same time, complaints against officers fell for the 4th consecutive year. We are one of the best trained police agencies in this country. Significant resources have been spent to train officers in areas such as bias-based training, de-escalation training, scenario-based training, and legal updates. In fact, I had the honor to participate with President Obama's task force on 21st century policing and provided testimony which underscores the Division of Police as a national leader in training. The Division of Police was #1 in the nation as measured by positive police law enforcement sentiment as shared via social media on Twitter. Our state-of-the-art crime lab is one of the most premier labs in the country with customized equipment to assist personnel in efficiency and effectiveness. The lab allows for almost all evidence processing to be completed in-house, and other law enforcement agencies can rely on their high standards and services as well. Our Columbus Body Camera Committee promulgated a best practice policy, estimated costs, and recommended Ohio Revised Code changes. Likewise, another committee administered the RFP procurement process. We contracted with the vendor WatchGuard body cameras and will begin initial deployment at the end of this month. Purchased land and started engineering and architectural work on the building of a brand new police substation on the far north side of Columbus. We continue to engage in significant community outreach and collaboration by the Division of Police through neighborhood meetings, social media, and a multitude of programs. Our diversity inclusion officers, our community liaison officers, and daily interaction with the community by our officers. The Division of Police responded to over 1.283 million calls for service on an average of over 3,500 per day. During the time it takes to conduct this hearing, police and fire will respond to an average of 100 calls for service. And now, Fire Chief Kevin O'Connor.
Thank you.
Chief, before you begin, let me introduce also present now is President Pro Tem Tyson, also my colleague Elizabeth Brown and Shannon Harden. Before you begin, Chief, I'm going to take things a little bit out of order. We have two speakers that want to address some issues. Is Ms. Tammy Fortier-Aldasada present? Tammy, would you please come forward? First, congratulations on your being recognized and nominated for the YWCA's Women of Achievement. We've known each other for a long, long time, so congratulations. But would you please state your name and your address and any organization you represent, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you and good evening to council members. I really appreciate this time to come before you. My name is Tammy Fortier-Aldasada. My address is 5200 Berryleaf Grove, Columbus, Ohio, 43231.
Yes, please proceed.
We have a statement that we want to read to be part of the hearing in the record. Greetings. Today, Tyree King should have turned 14. Henry Green should have been planning for his holiday with his family. This holiday season, the King and Green family will have their first Christmas with a gaping and unfillable hole in their homes. The People's Justice Project stands with our immigrant brothers and sisters in their quest to have Columbus become a sanctuary city. We believe Columbus can become a model city as it pertains to community and police relations. The People's Justice Project is calling on Columbus to move from prisons and policing to prevention and programs. We want to reinvest in evidence-based practices that actually keep our communities safe. Unless we change those priorities, Tyree will not be the last child we lose. And I want the record to note that today would have been his 14th birthday, and his mother is in the audience with us. Columbus has continued to put big money interests over the interests of people in our communities, and it is time for a major shift in priorities. We are once again calling that there be a reexamination of the city's summer safety initiative, a reinvestment in the budget that addresses things that we know keep our communities safe, a reevaluation of that matrix and the investment there. The City of Columbus currently spends over $3 million on Columbus Police Department each year. We want to move toward a budget where at least 50% of policing budgets are invested in prevention, intervention, and community-controlled policing. The City of Columbus is asking for an additional $8.4 million on the bond package for police facility improvements and a $25 million for substations. We want new funds brought in from the police to be put instead towards facilities for trauma recovery and healing and services in neighborhoods hardest hit by violence. We want a collaborative agreement to work with us and other stakeholders on developing a reinvestment plan for those funds. We want the majority of the task force appointed by the community with criminal justice experts at the table and violence prevention experts, and the people directly affected by violence from our community. We continue to call for an independent investigation and transparency in the prosecution of the deaths of Henry Green and Tyree King and all future police-involved shootings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The second speaker, I think, is on the same subject matter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers, if you're in the audience, would you please come forward? Ms. Ayers, you have 3 minutes. Would you please state your full name and any organization you represent or yourself, and state your address, please?
Absolutely. I have something to give council.
That'd be fine. Aid will pick those up from you.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Ayers. I live at 1166 Rockwood Place. Forest Park, the best neighborhood in Columbus, in my opinion. And I am also here to talk about the Summer Safety Initiative. I'm also here today to talk about accountability. Accountability to the citizens and taxpayers of Columbus for the deaths of young black men and women at the hands of the police. Ultimately, each one of you are responsible. Responsible for passing the budget that pays killer cops, responsible for negotiating use of force policies with the Fraternal Order of Police, and responsible for ensuring all citizens are treated equally, regardless of zip code or race. Even your chief of police acknowledges that the Summer Safety Initiative does not work. And I quote from a report that she produced, "There was a long-standing observation within law enforcement that the summer months and warmer weather bring an increase in violent crime. This fact, combined with the Columbus Public School System's summer recess, firmly demonstrates the need for enhanced policing services during the summer months." And again, looking more closely at the reported homicide numbers in Columbus, we can report a seasonal spike upward during the summer months, or in other words, occurring during the Community Safety Initiative operating period. And you can see the numbers that happen between mid-May and September 1st. If there is a long-standing trend of increased violence during the summer, and the Summer and Safety Initiative is not decreasing those numbers, why does it continue to be funded? Why? And to further show the disconnect between the community and the police, Chief Jacobs writes, "The origins of the CSI are rooted in a spike of summertime juvenile violence and homicides. Still, we can see that the number of juvenile victims of homicide is relatively low. And you can see clearly in 2015, between mid-May and September 1st, 6 children under the age of 18 were murdered. That doesn't sound low to me. Another 4 between the ages of 18 and 20. I also have a little bit of advice. You don't stop crime with more bullets. You stop crime with good jobs, fair wages, good trauma recovery programs, and positive relationships between the community and the police. It is clear that what the city is doing is not working, and instead costing us the lives of too many citizens. I would ask you to please reconsider the money for the Community Safety Initiative, how it's being used, and where it's directed. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Pettis, first and foremost, Chief, would you like to make any comments with regards to the statements that have been made?
Only that I'm more than willing to sit down and talk about some of the concerns of these citizens. I think that there's some information that we could share that might better put things in context.
Thank you. And I think, Director Pettis, and I'll certainly throw it open to my colleagues if they have any other questions, but is it possible for you to sit down with the representatives who are both here tonight and discuss ideas and suggestions and recommendations they may have for the police division to reconsider the way in which they do the Summer Safety Initiative? I'm very familiar with the Summer Safety Initiative, and I know that it is very, very nimble and makes adjustments every year for the way in which services are delivered. But maybe some folks have some new ideas. Would you be willing to do that, sir?
Safety Chair Brown, members of council, Chief Jacobs and I would be delighted to sit down and have dialogue with the citizens and share ideas and perspectives. We're open to that. And I have my business card here, and we can arrange to have that meeting.
And after you've done that, would you make notification to myself, to my office, and to my colleagues if they so desire, to give us an update on exactly how that conversation went?
Absolutely.
Do I have any comments from my colleagues? Hearing none at this particular time, Chief O'Connor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening. In 2015, the Division of Fire responded to nearly 133,000 emergency calls for service. This averages out to about 11 calls per day per station. Currently, we have 32 stations in the city. We started the engineering and design work for construction of a new Fire Station 35 on the far east side on Wagner Road. We started construction of a replacement downtown Fire Station 2 on 4th and Fulton that's scheduled to open here in March. Our Mitchell J. Brown Fire Station 3 was featured in Firehouse Magazine Station Design Awards and received the Career Notable Award. It is tracking to achieve the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design LEED Gold Award, which is the second highest certification level within the LEED rating system. We implemented 2 additional peak demand medic units. We've restructured our EMS run cards to ensure that we are sending the right resource to the right place at the right time. We issued over 7,000 permits, performed more than 4,000 inspections, reviewed more than 1,900 building plans, provided public outreach at over 300 programs, reaching thousands of participants. Our members completed over 52,000 hours of continuing education and provided 38,000 hours of EMS training. Lastly, and importantly, both the Columbus Division of Police and Fire have received national recognition through an independent accreditation process, which is extremely rare for major metropolitan cities. And now, Division Administrator Ramona Patz.
Before you go to Ramona, Chief, I think any questions from any of my colleagues? Let me, Chief, would you elaborate? I had a conversation earlier with President Pro Tem Tyson and the concerns about the situation that happened out in Oakland, California, with regards to that particular establishment in which 36 people died. Would you speak to our capabilities with regards to the City of Columbus's fire division and what would be done to prevent such an event from happening here?
Yeah, our attempts in the Division of Fire are multifaceted. One is our members are out in the streets every day, our EMS units, our fire units. They have a message that to report back anything they find. We have about 10 years ago, there was a special inspector funded, Prevention 18, who operates, who can be called out at any hour of the day or night. It's a 24-hour position that does overcrowding inspections, bar inspections, public assembly inspections. So anything that, even if it's a pop-up, because the most frequent thing that happens is we don't know about them until they happen, meaning the fact you can't get out there to do a pre-plan on it. This inspector has the knowledge and skills to immediately go out and determine, and then if action is taken immediately, they work in conjunction with the Columbus Division of Police to take whatever safety measures are necessary at the time, and then following up the next days with code enforcement and people of that sort. In addition, we have what we feel is a very robust inspection program. We're trying to get out into every commercial building in the City of Columbus once a year. Part of that is trying to establish that relationship, so if businesses are doing things that they may not even realize, we want to be that good neighbor to try to tell them, how can we work with you? If you want to have a party, there's a right way to do it. Let us help you do that. We work in cooperation with the building department for the same thing. So the tragedy is that sometimes, no matter what we do, a landlord, a property owner does something they know they shouldn't be doing, and a tragedy happens. We're trying to do everything we can by being proactive in both inspections and in monitoring to prevent it here.
Chief O'Connor, how many deaths do you remember occurred in 2015 as a result of fire-related circumstances? Do you remember?
No, I don't have that information right here in front
But
of me.
it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 3 or 4, not more than that.
It was down here in Columbus, in the city of Columbus.
And I think it's important for my colleagues and for the public to understand that when fire does their inspections, especially for sprinkler capabilities and fire smoke detectors, and maybe you could elaborate on the smoke detector program that you are very, very actively engaged in making happen within the City of Columbus. Yeah,
Our Fire Prevention Bureau under Assistant Chief Whiting has been coordinating with the American Red Cross, and we've actually had a national program where we're out in the neighborhoods and we are blanketing neighborhoods with smoke alarm installations. In fact, this Saturday there'll be a kickoff. Our goal is to install 10,000 smoke detectors in 10 days. So 10 days, or 12 days of Christmas, I'm sorry, or 12 days of Christmas. The smoke alarms are provided by the American Red Cross. We go out into the communities. We will install these for free. It will be in your communities. You can also call our fire prevention people, and they'll set up a time to come out and install these. But the whole idea is to be proactive in this. We had a very fortunate thing happen over the summer. We do a cooperation. We blanketed a West Side community. That community had a fire about 17 days later where that smoke alarm saved a family. That family recognized that that smoke alarm, it wouldn't have been there if we hadn't been in their community 17 days earlier. And it was, I think, the 200 save the Red Cross program has had nationally. But it is something that it's intrinsic. Our members buy into it because they see the immediate impact. You know, this saved lives in the community by the fact that we were out there putting these smoke alarms in. So that's what we're trying to do from a smoke alarm standpoint.
And obviously to remind people continuously to replace their batteries and their smoke alarms. I see President Pro Tem Tyson, yes.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, and certainly for asking the question. I know I talked to Councilman Brown earlier in the week about that and before this hearing, because certainly when I think about artists too especially, and I know that oftentimes that they'll sometimes go into buildings that sometimes have not maybe been inspected, and people rent them out. And just wanted to make sure that, just wanted to hear what we were doing in our city. I do remember we had Milo Grogan had a building that certainly I think had some concerns in the past, and I think that your department worked closely, and I think with also building and zoning services to ensure that that building, because a lot of artists were living in that particular building, and so it just brought to light that we certainly would not want to a travesty like that to happen in our community, and it's known because it appears that people knew things were going on there, and so I just wanted to make sure that our residents knew that we take many precautions and do many inspections to prevent a situation like that. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's also important to note that we also accept if somebody knows something going on, because the hardest part is to know what's going on in the community. If you have information that you feel is a concern, you can call our non-emergency number. We'll send an inspector out just to make sure it's safe, because that's what our main purpose is, not finding anybody or doing that, is to make the community safe.
Thank you, Chief. There'll be a few other questions later on. At this particular time, Administrator Ramona Pats, the floor is yours.
Councilmember Brown and members of council, the Division of Support Services' mission is to provide crucial services to our first responders, as well as ensure the public is safe in regards to licenses, permits, and inspections. To date, in 2016, the division has implemented a new digital public safety radio system, which included physically touching all public safety radios at approximately 9,000. We deployed 25 new mobile data computers to fire, and we have a remaining 15 to deploy by the end of the year. We issued over 19,000 licenses and permits. We implemented online payments for licenses and penalties. Weights and Measures inspected over 16,000 different devices, and we processed over 1,300,000 calls into the 911 comm center. License and Weights and Measures is projected to generate over $3 million in revenue in 2017, and there are no significant changes in our budget for 2017.
Thank you. Director Pettis?
Yes, let's now focus on our 2017 public safety budget, which totals approximately $578 million. This represents a 3.5% increase over the 2016 public safety projected expenditures. The budget allocates $320 million for police, $243 million for fire, $7.3 million for support services, and $7.2 million for safety administration. Some of the major public safety initiatives for 2017 include fire classes. The proposed budget of 80 recruits, 40 in June and 40 in December, is the largest increase we have had in a number of years. For a number of years, we were only budgeted funding for a single fire class, such as in 2012, one class of 35, 2013, one class of 35. In 2014, we had one class of 40, and in 2015, we had one class of 45 recruits. This year, Mayor Ginther added an additional class for a total of 65 recruits. However, the proposed 2017 budget funds an even larger number of recruits, which will help us to prepare for both an additional medic to be put in place when Station 2 opens in the spring of 2017, and the opening of a new fire station, Fire Station 35, in 2018. And in police, our recruits, 70 recruits are funded, 35 in June and 35 in December, to maintain our nationally accredited Division of Police. For Narcan expansion, $150,000 funded to equip many additional officers with this life-saving drug to counter a heroin overdose. And for body cameras, we will be implementing our body camera program this month, beginning with our traffic unit. This initiative will undoubtedly foster safety and enhance police and community relations. For vehicles, Public Safety will work with the Fleet Management Division to determine the number of cruisers, unmarked vehicles, and other general fund light vehicles to be replaced in 2017. In 2016, the Public Safety Department purchased 76 SUV cruisers, 5 prisoner transport vehicles, and over 6 dozen other vehicles for the divisions of police and fire. And under programs and initiatives, the following programs are funded at or slightly more than last year. In our jail contract, $4 million. EMS billing contract, $1.8 million. Community Crime Patrol, $375. Capital Area Humane Society, $225,000. Our Truancy Program, $75,000. And the Community Safety Initiative, $750,000. With respect to the Community Safety Initiative, please note we are evaluating and seeking to ever improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the program in order to maximize the safety of the community that we protect. Neighborhood safety cameras. Funding for the Neighborhood Safety Camera Program in 2017 will allow for the expansion of the program from its current level of 100 locations and 300 cameras to an additional 14 locations and 42 cameras. And for diversity, we will be working with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to announce in the near future some new, innovative ways to ever increase our diversity. And for police community relations, we will continue to engage the community to foster a partnership of mutual trust and greater understanding. And in closing, Public Safety appreciates the generous support of Mayor Ginther, the Columbus community, and Columbus City Council. We thank you for your time, and we are available to respond to any questions or concerns you might have about the public safety budget. Thank you.
Director Pettis, thank you. I'm certainly going to throw it open for my colleagues to ask some questions, but let me start off with one that is obviously very sensitive to, I know, to the police chief and to the fire chief and to yourself, and that has to do with diversity. We're hiring more firefighters, and we'll be obviously hiring police officers. Would you like to speak to the issue about what we're trying to do to increase our diversity within both divisions?
Councilmember Brown, members of council, I asked CPD Lieutenant Scott Bartholow and CFD Lieutenant Lawrence Stevens to come and provide an update as to what they are doing in recruitment in both the police division and the fire division. Lieutenants, would you please come up?
Hello, members of council. As far as the police department goes, we just finished administering our 2017 test, so it's been certified. We have, my numbers here, 426 people were able to finish the actual test. Now, those people still have to go through the background administration, they have to go through the stress test, and now we have, with this new class, it will be a PATA certification. Before they can become the academy, the state of Ohio's APATA division has basically implemented that they have to do 1.5 miles of push-ups and sit-ups based on the Cooper standards for their age and race, or age and sex, before they can even start the academy. That's a new facet this year that we haven't had in the past. But we are right now at 39% diversity for our list, which I don't have the numbers from last year, but I think that's about probably average, or if not a little bit better than before. This year, what we did is we worked with OBDI and the CRC, and we went out to a couple different mosques during the recruitment process to talk to young Somalis to try to get them more interested in the job. I think in the 2017 list, when we go again, we'll have better success, because what we found out this year is a lot of the young Somalis aren't quite to the age limit that we need for this test that was born here in the United States. Some of the other ones, the drawback was they never had their GED or their high school diploma, so that was one setback for some of the Somalis that have come over from the country prior to being born here in the U.S. But what we're looking forward to mainly this year is to working with the new diversity inclusion unit to find new and innovative ways to even reach out more than what we've done in the past. to try to up our numbers.
And Lieutenant Stevens? Stay, Scott. Don't leave yet.
Good evening. Safety Chair
Thank you.
Brown, council members, my name is Lieutenant Lawrence Stevens. I currently am assigned to recruitment outreach. I serve as the current supervisor. Going back when we initiated, we had our last examination in 2014, and that's when shortly after that, I was assigned to that position. What we did, we examined the previous test results, and based on that information, we developed some specific recruitment events. When we examined that test, we determined that 80% of the females were not able to pass the physical capability test. Also, we determined that 50% of the African-American applicants did not complete the process. So we challenged ourselves to effectively make a change. And what we did, we incorporated 3 specific events. The first one is Fit and Inform. And basically what that is a 90-minute PowerPoint presentation. We do a comprehensive overview of the test. We give them the skills, we give them tips, and we provide strategies, hoping that they will be committed to continue with the process. And we hosted 9 events beginning in 2015. It's been very effective. Additionally, to address the females who weren't able to pass, we implemented a firefighter mile introduction. That's a specific component of the examination. They can attend that event as well as the Fit and Inform for free. We hosted 5 of those in 2015 up to date. Our goal is to be able to see them, and we see they were able to come multiple times. Their times have improved, so they're gaining confidence, and we're confident that they not only will they complete the process, they'll have a higher placement on the eligibility list. In addition, our next test is scheduled for 2017, and we initiated or launched our advertisement. Many of you may be aware that one of our biggest recruiters is Director Pettis, and he was featured in a publication that we started. And also within that publication, we had a full page that was dedicated to fire recruitment efforts. And we illustrate the things that individuals can do to get informed, to get connected, and become part of our process. As far as the Hispanic and the Latino population, we are also advertising through radio and publications within their community and also within Central Ohio, as well as other publications, radio stations, to advertise and attract African Americans to the process. Because we believe once you are in the process and you commit, then we challenge them to commit to be successful. Come to our events and we'll give you the skills that's necessary to be successful. In addition, we implemented or launched in 2015 the What Ignites You campaign. And what that is, we knew in our office we had 3 able bodies. So we incorporated the help of 1,500 firefighters. Under the direction of Fire Chief O'Connor, we launched that campaign, and we incorporated and we challenged firefighters to find capable, able bodies to be a part of the process. We've seen the efforts, the achievement of their efforts by the contacts that we're receiving, the phone calls that we're receiving, so we're proud of that campaign. With that, we developed what we call minority impact cards. We illustrate females, Hispanics, military, and African Americans who had a passion to do more than just what they did in their everyday lives. Some of them were track athletes, some of them, as I said, served in the military, some of them were sculptors. So we solicit their help to get the message out to the individuals in our community. And on the back of every impact card is a 7-step process so that they can follow and contact our office for further information. So those are the efforts we've done thus far to this point.
Lieutenant Stevens, would you at least elaborate also about the importance of trying to, for attracting females to the fire division? The issue, if I remember correctly, has always been upper body strength, and the way in which you've gone about trying to educate as well as to attract women to the Division of Fire.
Absolutely. Across the country, the statistics indicate that 2% of fire departments are made up of females, so that's a challenge throughout the country, not just in Columbus. With that being said, we have identified that upper body strength in the past was a challenge, and the way we were able to overcome that with the Firefighter Mile events, we have on-duty firefighters there to teach and share techniques and strategies to overcome the lack of upper body strength. And we've seen the results by their times that we're improving. And it's important, as you stated earlier, or alluded to, that females are important. They are part of our community, and we surely want to have appropriate representation.
If I'm not mistaken, so Councilmember Page and Councilmember Brown both have expressed interest in improving their upper body strength, so you may be hearing from them very, very shortly.
We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Please. Councilmember Brown has a question.
Thank you so much for that outline. That was really helpful. I wondered if there is any programming either under consideration or maybe already being implemented around mentoring within current firefighters, minorities and women who can sort of provide that extra level of motivation and just guidance through the process for recruits.
Absolutely. We do currently have individuals that were part of the fire service who serve in that capacity on their own time. A lot of these individuals are retirees. They do that. And then also internally, we are in the beginning stages of possibly developing programs and initiatives to include members of the community, and specifically African Americans and females in general, to teach them the skills that they need, and hopefully once it's fully developed, again, this is in the beginning stages, the goal is that they will be taught by our fellow firefighters, so they are learning from the best, and then in between tests, they are gainfully employable for other agencies.
President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Just a couple questions. You just mentioned that most fire divisions have about 10% women. Is that, you said nationwide, is that?
2%.
2%, okay. 2%. And so
Actually, make a correction, it's less than 2%.
Less than 2, okay. And so what's the number in the city of Columbus?
Number of females? Mm-hmm. Well, that currently, I believe there's less than 35 total.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking the question is that if it's 2% is nationwide, then we need to. I know that Columbus always likes to exceed goals. However, if we're at 2%, now I don't think that we are just with the numbers.
Not the division, nationwide.
I know, no. I know you said 2% nationwide. I was asking, what is the percentage in the city of Columbus?
I believe that number is 10%.
So 10%.
Yes.
So and I'm saying that to put this in context, that we have already exceeded.
Excuse me.
I can't. Well, you have 19. I mean, look, that can't be right because you said the number of. I'm not trying to take. We have 1,588. So that wouldn't be right because 1,500.
You're correct, Councilman Tyson. It's 10% minorities within the division.
10% minorities in the division.
Correct.
And again, and then in context for that, nationwide, you don't have to answer. You don't have that. I think that if you could provide that to us, because I think we have to put things in context to see. Go ahead. Maybe you have it.
Well, the numbers that we have currently 1,525 firefighters, in which 29 are females.
So, of course, that's not that
2%.
So then, and nationwide, you said it's 2%.
That's correct.
Okay.
Less than 2%.
Less
So
than 2%.
we're even or exceeding the national standards, but that's not our goal.
And I agree with that. That's not your goal. I was basically trying to put it in context. And the reason why I'm asking that is because I'll have 23 years at the city in January. And I started out at the Civil Service Commission being a commissioner. And I will tell you, for the last 23 years, we've been really trying to increase our numbers. And certainly at the time that, because there are a lot of people of color retired probably last year before, retiring. And based upon that, we're trying to fill those same positions. It is very difficult. And I know you're working hard, but I want to also put realistic expectations on what you're doing and realistic expectations of what we want to see. And I just know that how difficult it is. You just shared how difficult it is for women because of the upper body strength. You've also just mentioned the difficulties with even, the Somalis, I think, in the police, because some don't have GEDs. And of course, we can have GED classes and try to be able to help make sure that we have more Somali people within the police division. But overall, this is hard work. This is tough work. And part of it is culturally, especially being in the police division and also in fire. I think it's some part of a cultural issue, and then we have to figure out how to deal with that, because you see some, and I saw this in civil service, there are families of police officers families that brothers, sisters, grandfathers have been police and firefighters. And that's not necessarily the case in minority communities and around females. So I think we have to figure out a way to work within our cultures as to how important these jobs are, because these are really great jobs. And I think, listening to Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, how do we also have really strong mentorship programs for middle schoolers, high schoolers, because not only do you have to have be able to meet the physical standards, there are stringent background standards that individuals have to meet. And you almost have to want to do this job from from junior high, high school, based upon even the background standards. So I'm hopeful that the work that your teams are doing, and with Chief Safety Director Pettis, that we can begin to think about culturally how do we change the dynamics of what people think about these professions, and then programs we can get people before they get involved in activities they should not be involved in that prevent them from being a part of our police and fire force.
I agree 100%, and we have and we will address those issues. We do go into middle schools, but as you alluded to, everybody do not want to do this job. It is a hazardous occupation. People are running out where we're running in, so people are fearful of that, but the way that we overcome those issues or those challenges is through education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Brown. And I don't want to keep beating this horse, but I think it's important, and specifically what President Pro Tem Tyson was speaking about in terms of the diversity that is about to retire out of our police and fire ranks. As chair of the Public Service and not Public Service, as Small Minority Business Committee, and working with ODI in terms of the changes that are the work that we'll do and working with the public safety in terms of recruitment. I was wondering if maybe director or chiefs can give some context to how we got a pretty good number of good diversity in the past, how it's retiring. I want to set the stage for, we're not just talking about these issues just to talk about them. We really need to invest time and energy and to President Pro Tem Tyson's statements, we have to come up with some really unique things to step up in this area. Can you give some context of how we did well in the late or early 80s, late 70s, to how do we get there, the issue that we're having in terms of retiring out and where we are now?
Sure, Councilmember Harden, members of council. What we are dealing with in the city of Columbus and major cities across America resulted from historical and socio and economic issues from pre-1960s and 1950s during the era of segregation. And in the city of Columbus, we actually had a Negro fire station on 20th and Mount Vernon Avenue so that minorities could not work for the Columbus Division of Fire unless there were vacancies at that one fire station. Subsequent to that, in 1975, the city of Columbus entered into a federal consent decree that required one-for-one hiring, one minority for every non-minority that was hired. I believe a similar dynamic took place in the Division of Police. And so we grew from around 2% minorities in 1975, and in the Division of Fire, that consent decree ended in January of 1987. The numbers grew from around 2% in the Division of Fire to nearly 18%. That consent decree having ended in 1987, we haven't been able to keep pace with that 50% hiring of minorities. And so every year we lose minorities. It's down to like 2% now. While the city has grown and the Division of Fire has grown and the Division of Police has grown since that era of 1960s and 1970s. And there's in addition to cultural issues, there's another dynamic that's at play. You often hear me and others talking about our police division and our fire divisions are models for divisions across the country, and that's actually true. So jobs in the police department and the fire department in Columbus are highly sought after by everyone, and so that makes it very highly competitive. And one individual that I talked to in the county said, so it's kind of like the little leagues and the big leagues. And so many individuals who have prior experience in police and in fire and are already paramedics spend years trying to get on the various departments in Columbus. And so that makes it even more difficult. And as the lieutenant alluded to, not everyone wants to be a firefighter or a police officer. It's dangerous work. So that reduces the pool that we can draw from. And then with our stringent requirements and criteria, which we don't want to lower standards, that makes it even more difficult, because if you qualify to be a Columbus police officer or a Columbus firefighter, you also qualify for other good jobs. So we're looking at all of the different variables, and I try to let the public know that this is not going to be a quick dynamic. Many of those who are successful in getting on the police department and the Columbus Fire Department spend 3 to 5 years trying to get the job. So it's not something that you're going to hear about a civil service test in 90 days in advance, take the test, and then in a few months become a Columbus police officer or Columbus firefighter. That does not typically happen. It's a long-term dynamic. And so we are working with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and with representatives from the mayor's office, along with Columbus Community College, Columbus State Community College, and Columbus City Schools. And I believe in the near future, the mayor may have an announcement as to our progress on some of those efforts.
Thank you, Director. I really appreciate setting that context. One of the things that we hear sometimes is that the length between testing and hiring makes it difficult for some folks who are either previously employed as a EMS in a smaller town or something, that would still be the length of time between the testing and the hiring makes it difficult for some folks to stay in the hunt.
That has been a barrier, especially for the Division of Fire. I believe the Division of Police moved to continuous testing. Chief Jacobs can speak to that, but the Division of Fire has not done that yet, and we do include civil service in our efforts to address the time frame for fire exams and the length of the eligibility list. In the past, it has run anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So if you take the test in 2017, you could be on that list for the next 3 to 5 years. We are trying to reduce that time frame. We are taking a look at what's being done in the Division of Police, and Chief Jacobs can speak to their continuous testing.
Just briefly, Director Pettis covered a lot, but in the last 3 to 4 years, we've made significant strides in improving that turnaround time. We did go to once-a-year testing instead of every other year testing, which is great, because now when we test, we can tell people, we are looking to hire you either in June or December of next year. We've got a commitment from the administration that we're going to have 2 police classes every year, so we can give somebody a firm idea of how to time out their expectations for what this test will enable them to do. And so the people that just took this test that Lieutenant Bartholomew just talked about, with 39% diversity, we will hire off of that list for June and December of next year in this coming year's budget. And we've also reduced the number of times that people have to see us. But we also have the same kind of programs that Lieutenant Stevens talked about with regard to Get Fit Informed. We give them information about how to study for the test prior to, and then how to get prepared for the background process as well. So we've made a lot of strides with regard to working with civil service, to recruiting videos, and many other tasks. We've implemented the expos and have had very successful opportunities to get with people at the expos to talk about this job. And while that does bring in some people that were already interested, we've also created in some brand new interest as well.
And as Lieutenant Stevens indicated, the last fire test was given in 2014. Another fire test will be administered in 2017, and no one will be hired from that list until 2018. So that's an example of what I mean from 2014 to 2018, and individuals are still on that list and will be hired from that list through 2017.
50% of the African Americans didn't complete the testing process. That's correct.
Do you have any plans to try and recontact those individuals if they're still interested in pursuing this wonderful opportunity of becoming a Columbus firefighter?
Yes, we have. We have currently a 3,500 name database, and we also utilize civil service database. So as they continue on, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon to go through this process 3 or 4 times to be successful. As the director alluded to, the test is given infrequently, so even though a person may not be successful, they will take it, or sign to take it again. What we also have done is incorporated the fit and forms, as Chief Jacobs described, to keep individuals engaged. And not only that, by them gaining, and we're providing them with the necessary tips and strategies, our goal is to help them improve their confidence where they will continue. Because we always tell individuals, if you don't complete the process, you're guaranteeing yourself of not getting hired. So by them going through the steps, going through the events, going to the expos, they're gaining confidence, momentum to continue and complete the process.
And even though Lieutenant Bartholomew was back in the back, but the same programs are applicable, Chief Jacobs, for police as well. Is that correct?
That is true. We have a program where we, first of all, get with them and tell them how to study for the actual test prior to. Then after they have received their scores, we invite them to participate with us with Get Fit and Informed. And that is teaching them how to exercise that will pass the state standards that are required to get into the academy, which is part of the background process. And the state has just changed that to require not just the test that we were giving, but a 1.5 mile run as well. And they have to pass that test before they enter the academy. In addition to that, we meet with them. As soon as we know who the people are that are on the list, we start contacting them and scheduling them for orientation so that they will know what to expect on the first day of the academy. It allows them to ask questions, and then we also offer opportunities for them to run with us so that they can get in shape prior to entering the academy. There's a lot of different programs that we have available to them, and all that information is available online, and then anytime that they reach out and contact us. And again, we reach out and contact a lot of people as well that have shown interest in the job and try to stay in touch with them during that process. Significantly, we see generally about half of the people that actually apply never show up for the test, which is one of those things that there's an amount of self-selection that does happen. People, got interested, but then they decide for themselves that they don't want to follow through. But we do try to stay in touch with those that we feel are genuinely interested in seeking this career.
Chief, and maybe Director or Lieutenant Stevens, social media. How are we employing social media in today's marketplace to try and attract young people who wish to become a firefighter or a police officer?
I'm glad you asked that question. We are actively working with a city provider, and we are developing a target marketing through social media, Facebook, utilizing Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, that specify, and the way they explain it to me, they can target through the use of technology and provide the information they're able to track all the way up to the point that these individuals come to our events and sign up and take the examination. So that's something we're excited about as well. But one thing I do want to fall back on as well is that one silver lining is that the chief explained it appropriately, that once the consent decree was lifted, we had a guaranteed 50% whites and 50% non-whites. Since that was lifted, the last two, we have not been able to meet those numbers up until lately. The last two classes, we have achieved 25% minorities. So that's a plus, but yet we'd have to do a lot of hiring to catch up or sustain the numbers that we're trying to achieve.
I think it's important for my colleagues, as they've already asked, why we spend so much time on this issue about diversity. I can clearly acknowledge that we want our fire divisions and our police division to not necessarily reflect our community, because that's very, very difficult, but we certainly want people to pursue the aspects of public safety, police and fire, and all the efforts that you and Lieutenant Bartholow have put in to try and enhance this. Make sure that people know that if they want to call someone, who should they contact, Lieutenant?
They can contact recruitment outreach at 614-645-6387. We currently have 3 full-time recruiters there available to take their calls and assist them in the selection process.
And Lieutenant Bartholow, the number?
Sir, they can contact me at 645-4002, and I'll get in touch with
Thank you. President Pro Tem?
Thank you. I'm going to ask and make a couple statements about recruiting, and then can I ask a different question? So, as you were just, talking about, I love this get fit and get informed. I think that's a great theme. That I'm just sitting here thinking about, there are a lot of groups that, female groups, male groups that, they run, they're in shape, and so I don't know if we've reached out. I mean, I just sat here and thought about it. I mean, people who are at the gym who want to be physically fit, people that are running in our marathons. I mean, it takes a special person. Well, first of all, the fitness part, and then of course to want to be able to be in action in places that someone like myself, I certainly couldn't be a police officer. When I was younger, I have no police officer fire. I don't want to run too dangerous, so I really do respect the work that you guys do. I also know that that those tests can be challenging, so I know that what work the police and fire persons do in terms of their level of intelligence and their commitment to going to danger. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I'm happy that your numbers, you just mentioned the last 2 classes, you have 25%, so you guys should be commended for what you're doing, and just keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask a question that isn't there. This is just kind of just thinking about, I know the body cameras, and I know that the department indicated, I think even yesterday, that there would be could be indirect costs that were not accounted for in the implementation process. And so, of course, outside of the 3 additional positions that you have and safety related to this program, can you discuss that? If you believe the department will have any other impact, there'll be any other impact on their 2017 general fund operating budget in terms of either overtime officers for the duties related to the body-worn cameras as well as additional training?
Right now, everything is an estimate. We don't know the impact. Next year, implementation will be phased in based on the infrastructure that's able to be put into our substations. The officers that are going to be starting to wear them this year will have to travel some distance to upload the video because of the infrastructure issues that we have. We will start monitoring the amount of time that is spent on the technical side of keeping our devices working. We anticipate that some might not work functionally, and then we'll have to have some support for that around the clock as well. The body cameras are going to create a lot of video. We know that we have public records personnel that are available for that, but on the technical side, we'll have to have personnel that will be available to assist them in making sure that it's running properly. We don't leave our substations if our emergency lights don't work or our siren doesn't work, and bottom line is we won't be leaving the substation if our body camera doesn't work either. So those are some of the additional tasks that we see. We just don't know what the performance is going to be. So it's an estimate at this point in time. Ultimately, we know that every part of every shift now will be spent on the classification of the video, the uploading of the video. That may or may not be able to get done on duty time, and it might result in some overtime, but we plan to start tracking that as well. We're going to try to maintain our calls for service in addition to the uploading process, the classification process, the review process, because we don't want our officers to be inconsistent with what's on the video. So we're certainly going to make sure that they have ample opportunity to review the video for certain situations where they need to rely on not only their memory of what happened in that particular incident, but also might be able to watch the video to ascertain if they missed something, such as somebody that went through a red light or somebody that did something else, because we want the most accurate reports that we possibly can have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Chief, will you, so just quickly, going back to presentation of Ms. Tammy Fournier, she listed a lot of things that PJP and others are asking for, baseline, some that I think. My question is that sometimes these conversations are very difficult to have in the middle of situations, in the middle of occurrences. The community is ripe with emotion. The division usually is ripe with emotion at that time in the midst of a situation. How do we have a conversation, so in particular like independent investigations, to let folks know in the community that we explore other options, that we explore what we are currently doing, and parse out the difficulties in looking other places, because since we've had incidents, we've had conversations, and when you slow down and you have the the harder questions, it becomes difficult to say, well, if not us, then who? Then, so could you walk me through kind of like the questions that we would ask ourselves, and kind of just to when we think these things through?
Certainly. The council members, the Division of Police prides itself on following best practices. We are accredited, and we have been since 1999. That means that we follow more than 450 different standards that call for policies to be in place and policies to be followed. You don't get reaccredited if they're not being followed. So we pride ourselves on doing what we believe are the best practices in the country. In Ohio, we have a different set of circumstances than other police agencies because we have open records. Our records, other than totally investigative records, are available to the public. And we work with that knowledge in mind. We know that when we write something down that it's going to be able to be viewed by everybody. Therefore, it's important that it be the most professional document that we can create. And that includes our investigations of officer-involved shootings. Right now, there is debate across the country and within the state, obviously, on the benefit of having external investigations, if you will. There are pros and cons to that. I believe that probably 95+% of all police agencies should have an external investigation because most of those police agencies have no talented people that could come in and do a thorough and accurate investigation of a police-involved shooting because they've never experienced one. They've never had to investigate one. They don't have enough detectives. They don't have people that are available. And so I believe that external investigations are appropriate in most circumstances. Large agencies have an issue, though. They are obviously experienced with these situations, unfortunately, because the use of deadly force is at times necessary. However, there aren't many other large agencies of their size and expertise to be able to come in and do that, especially something that's close enough to get it done quickly. Witnesses need to be interviewed, scenes need to be held, and so we're always looking at what the alternatives are. As an employer, I believe that we owe our employees the best investigation that they can possibly have. Because if they don't have that, then they have a grievance against us as an employer if we don't give them the same level of expertise, skill, and experience to create that investigation and to conduct that investigation. The Supreme Court of Ohio is talking about a recommendation that there be external investigations for all shootings. They've said that the Bureau of Criminal Investigation from the state should be the ones to do that. But that would mean sending their investigators, I'm sure they don't have enough, all over the state to do that. There are a lot of different issues. Who do you pay? Who pays for that? There's a lot of circumstances. It's a very complex, when you get right down to it, issue that is not easily solved. The fact of the matter is that in other states, none of the material that would be collected during that investigation would ever be viewed by anyone because it's private. In Ohio, that's not the case. Once the case is closed, investigatorily wise, it becomes a public record and anybody can review that and we can go over that with anybody. In addition to that, people have the right to file a federal lawsuit against us. And lawyers' fees are covered if they win the case based on the 1983 law. So that's a protection, I guess, if you will, for some people to be able to redress an investigation that they feel might not have been done well, or the circumstances themselves that might not have been handled well. The Division of Police prides itself on accountability. We have found officers to be outside of policy on shootings, and they have been disciplined. It's not an easy thing when you're trying to second-guess an officer in the heat of the moment that believes their life might be in danger, and we've sent them there. And then we ask them to do the impossible, which is to read people's minds and intentions and take their life at risk to decide what they need to do to protect themselves. So we're very interested in trying to educate people about those circumstances. We do ABCs of policing training. We do Citizen Police Academy training. We do ride-alongs. We do many, many different programming to try to get people an idea of what the expectations are, not just policy-wise, but legally, according to the United States Supreme Court, who's ruled on how officers' use of deadly force will be judged. The idea of many different, action groups that have made recommendations are things that we have discussed and determined whether or not they fit the Columbus Division of Police. And we're always interested in sharing ideas and looking at new ways of doing things, but also, most importantly, building trust. And sometimes building trust is done face-to-face, most of the time it's done face-to-face, and by sitting down and talking about the complexities of the kind of work that we do and why things get done the way that they do.
Thank you, Chief Jacobs, for that explanation. That was very thorough and helpful. And I kind of want to dig in a little bit more on one component of it. First, ask a question on the public record side. You said everything that are like truly investigative records are public, but then some category is not. Can you just explain what that differential is?
I'll try to. I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, me neither.
My understanding of the public records law is that during the pendency of a criminal investigation, the records of the investigation are kept private until it goes to court and during the process of appeals and things like that. There are some records in the Ohio Supreme Court just ruled that some of the records that we collect even prior to are going to be public. For instance, if we receive a 911 call that says that I just witnessed my neighbor murder his wife, and my name is John Smith, I live at this address, da-da-da-da-da. In the past, the Ohio Supreme Court has ruled that that phone call is a public record immediately. We have no redress. We have to, if somebody asks for it, we have to put that out. It might be on the 6 o'clock news before we actually capture the suspect. That suspect could hear the 6 o'clock news, go find the witness who just told on him, and harm that person. And the Ohio Supreme Court says we recognize that that could happen, but we think the openness of our records is more important. So many of our records are public very quickly. Our cruiser video is going to be available now, according to the Supreme Court in Ohio, on a case-by-case basis if it's not of an investigative nature. So those records are available upon request. Once the case is closed, the criminal investigation is closed, then all of our work becomes a public record.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then secondly, I believe there's wide agreement. I know I've heard you say this before that good police community relations are a foundation for better policing and therefore safer streets. And the process that you outlined for investigation internally is a struggle. As Councilmember Hardin said, it's hard to find another entity that has the ability to do these investigations. However, if people in the community don't trust the process, no matter how good it is, there's a vulnerability and there's a problem with it, right? Even if it's very, very good, because of the importance of police-community relations, like it's an internal or it's an inherent kind of conflict, right? So you said the problem is complex and really hard to figure out, and it's hard to find the right answer for it. And I guess I would just ask that we have an ongoing conversation about how to unravel that very difficult knot of trying to solve the problem and trying to find an answer, because I fully understand everything that you laid out.
I agree. I think that, there needs to be conversation and understanding and education. And, there are some things that are certainly worth looking at and seeing if there's a better alternative. Sometimes there is no better alternative, but we still have better understanding. And I think it's important that we seek the understanding particularly.
Chief, very quickly, would you elaborate? We realize the issue about trust and what you have done within the community with regards to your outreach to educate them about the very system that my colleague just asked about.
I am extremely proud of the division's outreach. We engage with our community between 300 and 400 times every single month. Our community liaison officers represent one for each precinct in the city. There are 20 of them, and they are constantly available to community groups, civic associations, block watches, commission meetings. Anybody that wants to talk about their community, their neighborhood, knows how to contact their community liaison, and when they don't, we give them that information. So that's one of the full-time jobs that we do, is provide somebody with quality of life. Our community liaison officers are responsible for really finding a new way to deal with some of our nuisances as well. Two of our officers were key to getting a number of hotels, now apartment buildings, and other really death traps and bad places closed down. So they've dealt with a lot of community of life issues and will continue to. In addition to that, we have 5 teams that are community response teams. They are uniformed officers that either patrol in a vehicle or on bikes, and all they do is react to our community's needs. They do not take calls for service, but they're out there patrolling and looking for crime patterns and attending community meetings to find out from our community what's going on. And because they're freed up of the calls for service, they're able to go deal with that tonight. You know, if they go to the meeting today, they can go deal with that tonight on their shift. In addition to that, we have ABCs of policing that we teach to anybody and everybody. The Citizen Police Academy is now a 12-week-long program, and we had our largest class ever, I believe, in the spring, and or in the fall class. We had more than 40 people that were in attendance for the Citizen Police Academy. They learn a lot about the Division of Police. People can go on a ride-along to see what it's like on this side. In addition to that, we've held community meetings. And this year, we styled them in the dialogue format. And those were the ones that we put on, but we also attend many other dialogue meetings with some of our churches in the community. We invite people to come sit down with us. We broke bread and basically just said, tell me what your concerns are, what your questions are, and we answered those for five different times for 2 hours solid, and had a lot of officers there. We'll continue to do that next year. I believe that it is the most effective way of sitting with people and giving them an idea of what our expectations are. Some of the successes that we've had from those community meetings were so gratifying that I know that we have to find a way to do it more and to reach into some of our minority communities so that we have better attendance at such meetings. But we do a tremendous amount of outreach. I've got a long list of the things that we do and the programs that we have, which I would hold up beside any other police agency in this country, especially major cities, and say nobody does more than we do.
Thank you, Chief. A question, part of that, to segue into one more issue that involves both you and Chief O'Connor, is the pilot project with regards to the use of Narcan, naloxone. Could you speak to the status of that program and subsequently the relationship we have with the fire division about addressing those concerns that we have in our community with regards to an opioid crisis?
Well, I know that Chief O'Connor has some statistics that are really unfathomable to me, and yet it's a sign of the epidemic that we're facing, and that is that heroin is killing our community members at an atrocious rate, and because it is something that happens very, very frequently, we've recognized that it was important for us, if we come upon a situation like that, for the police officers that were at the scene to be able to deal with trying to save that life in addition to what EMS is able to do. I know that they had more than 2,200 saves and calls, I believe in 15 perhaps, and I'm sure Chief O'Connor has those numbers. But we implemented a very small-scale project to determine whether or not we would be able to engage in that. And I know that we have at least 45 saves ourselves in just a couple of our precincts. We know where most of these overdoses occur because of the fire department's statistics. And we focused on those particular areas first to find out if we could assist in saving lives, and we certainly have been able to do that. We are now planning on expanding that and in issuing the Noxalone to more officers so that we can continue to save lives.
Chief O'Connor?
Yeah, to put this in perspective, Saturday, we administered Narcan 13 times, just on Saturday. We don't administer that medication unless you have a breathing rate of less than 4, which means you are imminent death. So this is not someone that might have been a little high. This is someone that, if without interaction, would have been a fatality. On any given day in the city of Columbus, we're doing it about 7 times a day. Last Saturday, there was a spike. We've had spikes, you've seen them in the news, where we have a more potent dose that'll come through. We may have upwards of 10 to 20 to 30 in one day. One of the things that we're seeing is that we've been working with the police. We're able to get them into this system. But what we've done is we're looking at what the next step is, because this is just one thing. The real solution is they have to get treatment. This is not treatment. This is saving their life and gives them the opportunity to get treatment. We're reaching out to the Adam H. Board. We're reaching out to Columbus Public Health. We're reaching out to the hospitals. We're reaching out anywhere we can to understand that it is really, we need treatment centers. It is very frequently, and I'm sure the police are having this same issue, is when we have people with substance abuse, not just heroin, but alcohol and other substance abuse, where the treatment centers are full, which means the only option is either they have to go to jail or they have to go to a hospital. Neither one of those is the cure for what the solution is. They need treatment options, and that's where we need to focus. We are ramping up to be able to, we're going to meet our need to be able to meet the citizens of Columbus. If we have a heroin overdose, we want to be there. We've been given Narcan is not a new drug. Councilmember Brown will tell you he was given it in Pittsburgh many years ago.
Yes.
So it's been around, it's a very good drug, but it's something that is not the end. The end is treatment. That's what we've got to get to.
With that, I can't let Ramona sit there without asking her a question because it deals with the issue. Ramona, the mobile data computers for the Division of Fire, have they've been upgraded, I understand?
Yes, Councilmember Brown, we upgraded, we worked with the Division of Fire in 2015 to determine that we needed to completely replace all of Columbus Fire's mobile data computers. They were end of life. We were to the point that we could not do any more updates on their computers. So we worked with the Division of Fire. They worked with the Director's Office to get funding to be able to buy some new MDCs. So the bulk of those were installed in the 2015 and the beginning of 2016. So we're down to our last 17 installs. And that'll be a complete replacement of all MDCs in Columbus Fire. And we are then implementing a replacement schedule so we can keep up with this. The computers that they initially had, if you remember, they were from the COPS grant that I got back in 2006. So they've been on the street for quite a while, and they lasted a long time because Columbus Fire doesn't use a whole lot of applications or background use. They just basically use their front-end user for their CAD and some stuff for, is it NFIRS? Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. So they have very limited use on the computer, and they lasted a long time. The problem is technology caught up with those, and they couldn't hold the memory necessary to be able to hold the upgraded CAD system. So those are almost completely replaced at this point.
Thank you. Also, one of the other questions associated with that is the mobile data terminals in the automobiles and the police vehicles, Chief. Are they all of our frontline vehicles, first responder vehicles, do they have mobile data terminals, the dash cams?
As much as possible, yes. I mean, we continue to have some accidents that we try to prevent but can't. So once in a while, that frontline cruiser might not, but I believe that even our relief cars now, most of them, if not all, have a mobile data computer in them. And as Administrator Pats said, we have many, many uses for the mobile computers that we use, including taking offense reports right there in the field on those, as well as accessing other applications, including LEADS and NCIC and various other databases that we need to access.
Administrator Patch, yes, you had something else?
Yes, some additional comments on the digital video cameras. Part of the responsibility of my division is to keep those up and running. So what we do as we are replacing the cruisers every year, those are stripped out and repaired. My personnel are certified in repair on those cameras. So what I do is we strip them out, we repair them, and then we're reinstalling them in the new cruisers as we come out. And what happens is you need new brackets, you need new power supplies. So we're keeping up with that. We're stripping them out, we're holding them back. When the new SUVs come in, they're actually put in the vehicle to send to the upfitter and put in at that time.
Jeff, along with the issue about prisoner transport vehicles, if I remember correctly, there was a situation in one of our major cities where an individual was not secured and unfortunately expired. But the prisoner transport vehicles you are purchasing now, Chief, you have some new safety features associated with it?
We do. We've always required that our prisoners be seatbelted in. In addition to that, the prisoner transport vehicles have cameras in the rear, and so we're constantly monitoring the activity of the prisoner in the back of the prisoner transport vehicle. We also use a new, it's going to be a seatbelt lock. We've actually watched our prisoners with their hands handcuffed behind their back, slide their hands over and take off the seatbelt just like that. You know, as soon as we start to get out of the van, they are already undoing the seatbelt. And so for a very low cost, I believe of less than $50 per transport vehicle, we're going to be able to put a new device that will sit over the seatbelt lock and will keep the prisoner from being able to unlock themselves.
Again, technology, what it can and can't do for us in a variety of different ways. I think it's significant, again, for the viewing public as well as for my colleagues who are here to understand all the different aspects associated with video. We're not only just talking about our police officers wearing body-worn cameras. We're not only just talking about our neighborhood safety cameras. We're not only just talking about mobile data terminals inside of our automobiles. All these things are technology-driven, and therefore the cost associated with being able to maintain them through servers becomes very, very dramatic. That's part of the issue for us in a variety of different ways. And Ramona, Administrator Pats, I appreciate the fact of the quality of work that you do to make sure that all those particular types of devices continue to work. And now that we're about to buy body cameras, and we realize that the technology will change, it's going to be incumbent upon you to have the proper staffing and all the tools and equipment you have to make sure that continues to work. With that being said, Council President and President Pro Tem Tyson, do you have anything else?
Thank you, Chairman Brown. I just want to just comment on the comments that Chief O'Connor made about the individuals in our community that certainly are using the Narcan. And two things. One, I know that I know the cost of this drug is just seeming to go up just because I think people are using it more, and you'd think that it would cost to go down, but that's not the case. But I know that the state of Ohio has just, in 2017, they will be purchasing Narcan, and they will have their price frozen at about 40% below the wholesale price. So it's something that I will certainly also speak to Director Lombardi about that as working with your team. But I will absolutely agree with you. I really appreciate, I'm Chair of Health and Human Services, but I certainly, and we have funded, we've added beds to our, to Mary Haven. We have certainly, and we've added, because we understand that when you have to give this Narcan, you're right. Now, these individuals have an illness now. It's an addiction illness. And we are able to save their life. But certainly the hospitals and the jails, that's not their role in the community. It's not, to save their life, the hospital, but we have got to deal with this issue. And I know a lot of people are right now focusing on a course of Narcan and what that does, and I understand that. But the numbers are increasing, as you're saying, and we have got, this is a nationwide issue. We don't have enough facilities. for individuals to be cared for and to understand their illnesses. So these like 10, 30-day facilities don't solve that issue. People need long-term care. And I know in certain cases you're going back to the same places where where people are, because we've got to figure out a way to be able to put people in treatment, long-term treatment. If we don't do that, I mean, I think about the people who are going to jail, and especially a lot of women. They're going to jail because of their addiction. Their addiction caused them to be involved in crimes. And if we don't figure out a way to get people long-term treatment, then, you know, we're going to just continue to spend dollars that it's like, you know, like it's a mouse on a treadmill or you know, a little round wheel. That's not going to solve it. So just with you talking again tonight, I think that we've got to figure that out in Columbus. And it is going to be costly, but we've got to figure that out. Because I know it's not easy to go out to save a life and know that basically you're going out, but you know people need more. And so I'm committed to working with you and my colleagues and certainly the administration and this city, because it's a city-wide issue, and how we're going to figure this out. But I thank you for your teams, both police and fire, for going out and saving individuals' lives. We've just got to figure out what's the next step. So thank you for the work your teams are doing.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. And in closing, I think the number was stated, but I don't know if people really appreciate the number that the Chief Jacobs gave. Since the program began with police issuing Narcan, began when, in May or June of this year?
6 months ago.
Pardon me?
6 months ago.
6 months ago. And in 6 months, the police, not EMS, who always does this and does this literally every day, have actually been responsible for saving 45 lives. That is an absolutely incredible number in that short period of time. And I just think sometimes it goes unnoticed to appreciate that, yeah, whenever the police do something wrong, people are quick to scream and jump up and down, and I understand that, but also they have to get the credit for taking on an additional responsibility, i.e. the issuance of Narcan. If members of our community have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Department of Public Safety at 614-645-8210, or they can contact my office at 614-645-4605. In closing, I would like to thank my fellow council members, Mayor Andrew Ginther, Auditor Dorian, City Attorney Rick Pfeiffer, and Director Pettis for their leadership in this budget process. In addition, I would like to recognize Deputy Director George Speaks, Deputy Director Kate Pishotti, Assistant Director Kathy Collins, Mr. Echo Dennis, and the entire Department of Public Safety staff for their role in the budget process. I would also like to thank Chief Jacobs, Chief O'Connor, and Ms. Ramona Pats for their presentations this evening. I would like to thank my staff, Denise Friend Foster and Grant Ames, for their assistance in preparing this evening's hearing. In closing, I would like to thank the community for their engagement and ask they continue to be engaged within public safety, because again, that's what makes this city roll and makes the city very, very popular and very, very positive. You can't have a quality city if you don't have public safety. And we are blessed to have two nationally and even internationally accredited divisions of both police and fire. Thank you all very much. That concludes our hearing this evening.